So here we are with Andy Marsh, Chief Constable Andy Marsh of Avon Somerset Constabulary, here in Bristol on a beautiful day.
You've brought sunshine with you, Bernard. Thank you for coming.
I'm delighted to be here. Let's head along. We're going to walk along the docks area, and a whole bunch of topics that I'm keen for us to discuss, Andy. Not least we're here in Bristol, not a great length of time after the Bristol riots took place, or at least there was disorder in Bristol relating to the toppling of a statue, and this certainly caused some national interest, if I can put it that way. I'm being a little cryptic there. Tell us a little bit more about those circumstances and what's happened in the time since.
Well, we're in a historic part of Bristol, Bernard. I mean, this is part of the city where many people brought to the UK as part of the slave trade would have landed. There's caves just from where we're standing. And Bristol is a fantastic city, as you can see. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There are many stories to be told in this city, and one of them is that it's a city of protest. So we can't put a broad brush across what happened. It's been a difficult year for Avon and Somerset Constabulary and policing and the public sector through COVID. But we had the Black Lives Matter protest and the toppling of the Colston statue last June, which was a very controversial thing, and people are awaiting trial with damage associated with that. And then more recently we've had a series of very, very violent protests associated with the Kill the Bill movement, I think if we call it that, and some significant disorder, which I can call riot, outside the Bridewell police station, because we've now charged 17 people with riot, over 60 arrested, many other offences charged, and much more to come. I promised a thorough investigation. It's one of the biggest and most serious investigations Avon and Somerset Constabulary's ever overseen, and it's still very much underway.
In 30 years experience working in policing, associated with policing, I don't even think I can remember a single occasion when an officer has referred to riot. It's very often disorder rather than riot, so there's a significant difference in the terminology there, is there?
Yeah, and I mean, explicitly I can say it because that's what's been charged, and I understand actually the last time that riot was charged in the UK was 2011, and the very significant disorder that we experienced then.
Yes.
What we hope to do, because transparency is an incredibly important thing, when these cases have gone through court, I hope to make as much of the digital body-worn video and other evidence available so that the public can see just what bravery the police officers exhibited, dedication to protect Bristol, to protect the police station and each other, and their commitment in facing down such violence.
One of the you were responsible for the introduction of body-worn video into policing in the United Kingdom, I believe. The first force, a former force of yours, Hampshire. You are now the lead on body-worn video, so you have quite an active part that you've played in body-worn video.
So other people and forces will have had small-scale pilots. I industrialised the introduction of body-worn video by being the first big force to personally issue it. Okay. I say for sure in the UK and possibly the world, actually, because Hampshire's a big force, and what we saw was a revolution. We expected some things, but we got many other consequences and evidence which academics have studied, and the benefits of body-worn video in terms of evidence gathering, transparency, likelihood of getting admissions, likelihood of early guilty pleas, the way in which the simple act of wearing and using a camera can change and professionalise the work of the police officer and can change the behaviour of the public towards the officers. And one of the most remarkable things I've seen, Bernard, is senior politicians and stakeholders leave their jaws on the table at the unbelievable bravery of our people dealing with complicated, ambiguous and dangerous work. And
what the public often see, though, are the videos recorded during the same incidents of disorder, or indeed here riot, that appear on social media, that may, again, being a little sort of circumspect about this, but put the police in a bad light, whereas the police may often have body-worn video that could be issued, could it not, quite promptly, put in the public domain quite promptly, that demonstrates that some of this other video that's more readily available paints a partial picture.
Well, one of the reasons why I personally issued the cameras was that people I work with in Hampshire were being recorded on smartphones, as we are recording each other now, and snippets of it in an edited fashion were being released and causing great harm to our precious and strong relationship with the communities we serve.
Yes.
And so I'm not interested in spin. I'm not interested in sound bites. I'm interested in truth, justice, transparency and fairness. And so my view was that we could do this better. But what we can't do is play fast and loose with the idea of a fair trial and the risk of prejudicing it. So although I support the release of body-worn video, absolutely, and Avon Somerset regularly release body-worn video to show the great work we're doing, and there are occasions we can do that pre-trial. I've written extensive guidance on it, supported and called for, in fact, by the Home Secretary and the Chair of the Police Federation, John Apter, and that is in the hands of all police forces, and we're starting to see many more snippets and pieces of evidence being revealed now that can help the public understand what the police really did.
So a recognition that the serving of justice may mean that some body-worn video needs to wait for the court date or to be used in evidence, but it seems a recognition that a more proactive approach, looking at the body-worn video and potentially making it available more immediately.
There are some circumstances where we do and we should and we can consider the release of body-worn video pre-trial, and so that evidence has been, that advice has been written.
Something else in the news only this morning, actually, that relates to another very challenging area for the police, and that is relating to the Daniel Morgan inquiry, the conclusion of the independent inquiry that there is institutional, I'll quote, institutional corruption in policing. Yeah. What's your reaction?
Well, I think the Daniel Morgan case is one I won't comment on. Very, very difficult case, and much has been said and written about it, which is far more effective to read that than anything I might say now. But I was responsible in Avon Somerset when I was a superintendent for setting up what we say is our first anti-corruption unit, and corruption and wrongdoing is something we take incredibly seriously, and we will root it out. All forces have got a professional standards hotline, and I know certainly in relation to the forces I've led, good police officers do not tolerate corrupt, dishonest or poor police officers, and so most of our work on corruption, and there's very little of it, but let's not deny it's there, comes from people whistleblowing it. I would certainly say it's not institutional. I'd say we're incredibly tough on corruption. I wouldn't say that it's not there, but we will root it out.
So were you surprised by the term institutional corruption?
Nothing surprises me, Bernard, after 34 years of policing, but I was disappointed by it.
You refer there to your 34 years. You started your service, I believe, here in Avon and Somerset. You progressed. You led Hampshire Constabulary. I think also, were you at Wiltshire as well at one stage?
I was an assistant chief in Wiltshire, so 3 forces after the
and then back to Avon and Somerset. And you'll, I'm sure, have seen quite some changes in your 34 years. What particularly do you look back on and think, well, I'm glad those days have passed, and perhaps even the flip side? There may be areas where you regret some of the changes that have taken place in those 34 years.
Just to further clarify the issue around institutional corruption, the reason I'm disappointed is it does a great disservice to the vast majority of hard-working, dedicated and honest police officers and police staff that roll up their sleeves and keep the public safe every single day. So that's why that disappoints me. Changes, my goodness, there have been many, and I've done a lot of exit interviews in my time, and sometimes someone will say the job's not what it was, and my retort to that, it's light-hearted, is, well, thank goodness for that. Because I can actually remember the days where we were not an inclusive service. You had to fit in. It was largely male dominated, very macho culture. And we know everything that's gone with that. We've seen the impact that's had on people's health and well-being, and we also understand the impact it has on trust and confidence and our ability to be innovative and the best police force in the world. So the biggest change I've seen is in our inclusivity. One of the changes, and I talked about a stoic response earlier. Mind the step, Bernard?
Yes, a step coming up on the road, and we're just going past the Bristol Old Vic Scenic Workshop. So
yeah, it's a beautiful and historic part of Bristol. So you know, when I joined the police, since then, some bright sparks invented the internet. We have mobile telephony. We now live in a data-rich society. But what I've sought to do with colleagues in Avon and Somerset, formerly Hampshire, is harness all of those digital and data developments to help make us even better at what we do. And so that's one of the most exciting things that I've seen change. And the thing that really doesn't change is it's all about people. And if it's all about people, it's all about leadership, and leadership comes from every single one of us. So developing that will be how we deliver outstanding police services in the 2020s and beyond.
the internet you refer to, certainly Policing Insight wouldn't be around were it not for the internet. And the opportunity... Not at all, good morning to you. The opportunity to actually learn from good practice, excellent practice, and potentially also from things that don't work as well, not just within the UK, but actually internationally. And so we were talking just a little before we started filming about my own sometimes frustration that forces policing hasn't been more prepared to try things that have a good chance of succeeding, but that might not. The opportunity to learn from things actually not working as they were intended to.
So the it's a good chance we talk about values, actually, Bernard. One of the things that I think that we've done in Avon Somerset, which has been most powerful, has been to refresh our values in line with what 21st century policing needs and wants. We've got 4 values. Talked about inclusion, courage. We talked about corruption, courage to do the right thing on a difficult day. That takes courage.
Morning.
Morning. Caring, the ultimate professional advantage in policing. But let's talk about learning. Now, sometimes your values talk to your strengths and your weaknesses. Sometimes they talk to who you are, and sometimes they talk to who you want to be. Now, in putting learning down as one of our values, we understood that there is a blame culture in policing, which stops people taking risks and stops people saying, do you know what, we tried it and it didn't work. So I made my blog every week, actually, internally, but my blog last week was about learning, and it was about some of the many mistakes I've made and the impact they've had and what I've learned from them, and encouraging other people to take acceptable risks and reflect on the learning that came from them. Now, that's what we've done with digital data and technology. If we want to continue to act at the forefront of policing, we need to continue to take acceptable risks about how we develop those remarkable tools.
And that's quite a culture change. So a change from a culture where decisions are passed upwards and still further upwards, even for something that might only imply a cost or a spend of 200 quid. Yeah. As opposed to, it's 200 quid, take the decision. If it turns out to be the wrong decision, as long as you've taken it in good faith and with suitable evidence for the risk associated, then you would say all well and good.
I did every year I do an annual roadshow where we talk. It's not me talking out, we have a discussion with the workforce, and this year we talked about what outstanding leadership looks like, and I talked about 6 factors. One of them was you push the data to the people so that they can make an informed decision, but if you're going to do that, you have to push the authority to the people too, and you have to be prepared to make a safe environment where people can make decisions and take risks and not fear that they might get it wrong for the wrong reasons. So actually, empowerment and the way in which we develop leadership in policing and the College of Policing needs to be a key feature of what the future looks like in terms of leadership.
We've got accompanying you today an example of where something didn't go quite as was expected, and you recognised that it was an error made in good faith. And but what I'm referring to, you will know, but others won't, is this is actually the second take of this particular conversation. We did similar about, I think, 6 weeks ago in the grounds of Avon Somerset headquarters, only to find that unfortunately the recording, and I take full responsibility for this, you were very generous in accepting my apology and in finding time for us to walk again, and I am most grateful for that. And we've been rewarded by this this lovely day.
We found somewhere nice, even nicer to walk around.
Well, it's very
and we
pleasant.
both understand a little bit more about GoPros.
The walk that we did do those weeks ago was round, I think it's called the Welfare Garden,
Yeah.
in Avon and Somerset headquarters, where one of the things that I do on these walks as part of the policing friendship tour that I'm on is ask those I'm walking with to nominate a charity. Now, you nominated a charity then. I haven't checked with you, but I'm imagining that you'll be sticking with that same nomination. And there was a bench in that welfare garden that was dedicated to a police officer who had been, I think I'm right in saying, killed on duty, or certainly died in service, very shortly before you had started your own policing service. A little bit of a long lead up perhaps, but tell us about your charity and perhaps the circumstances of that bench and your reflections on that.
Well, so the young officer with a lifetime of promise ahead of her was Debbie Lee, and her mum still comes to headquarters to the memorial garden, and there is a bench that commemorates it. And I know that Debbie's friends and family and colleagues, and they gain great strength from the fact that she's cherished and remembered. And in fact, a student award is dedicated to her every single course that we run. My own stepfather, who was a special constable in Devon and Cornwall Constabulary, is commemorated in the Devon and Cornwall Remembrance Gardens following a collision he was involved in on a 999 call. So actually looking after those that remain and remembering them in an appropriate way is something that I understand because I've seen it firsthand. And so I would like any funds that you can gather to be donated to cops, care of police survivors, because I've seen just how important it is to those who remain to have a network of support, people who understand what it's been like to help them through it.
Andy, a very worthy charity. You set out very plainly your own personal and circumstances that relate to the constabulary. I know that you've got ahead of you a very, very full day, and for making time first thing this morning here in a glorious Bristol, in Bristol Harbour, I am most grateful. We'll head back so that you can get to your next call, but really good to speak. And as you come towards the end of your policing service, I'll take this opportunity to wish you all the very best in whatever might lie ahead.
Thank you, Bernard, for having me, and thank you for what you're doing, and good luck with the rest of your tour.
Thank you so much.